of you. People are expecting things of you, and you should expect a lot of yourself. This is about really, as we heard before, shaping the future, figuring out what the world is like. And so I'm extremely honored to be here, and today what I want to share with you are ideas around time, passion, and impact. Going forward, I'm going to talk about how you use your time, finding and pursuing your passion, and having an impact on the world. So first of all, let's talk about time. Time is a one-trillionth irreplaceable commodity measurement. 86,400 seconds in each day. And each one of those seconds is extremely precious because you can do with each of those seconds exactly as you choose. But you can never get a single one of them back. So it's what you choose to do with your time that gives it its infinite possibilities. That's the first thing. Now the other thing, your time will rush by. I can guarantee you almost everyone on this stage, I can remember very vividly being in the spot you were in. I can remember very vividly being 12 years old like Taylor. Those are things that are truisms. But your time will rush by. And while it's really enticing to think of the future all the time, I want you to be in the present. Sometimes you have to be in the present. You think toward the future, but you're always in the present. But let me share with you a little bit more about me. You heard that I was an astronaut, I was a chemical engineering major, I majored in African studies, dance, business, all of those things. But let me tell you where some of these pieces got started. I remember as a little girl lying outside on a summer's night in Chicago, and I would stare with all my imagination intensity, south side of Chicago. I would stare with all my young imagination and intensity up at the stars. And I would imagine that I would always go into space. I assumed that I would go into space. But I also remember the National Guard walking behind my home during the riots of 1968 following Martin Luther King's assassination and the Democratic National Convention that had been held in Chicago. I remember being afraid for my father going to work that day. And so sometimes people might think that these things hold you back, but all around me, I saw this explosion of new ideas and possibilities, a world that was changing rapidly, a world that I was determined to be a part of, and I wanted to help make the world happen. And you see, even though some people might not have thought of me as this little African-American girl on the south side of Chicago, they may not have been invested in my intelligence, creativity, talent, and motivation. But you know, I had to have that investment in myself. And I chose my parents well. But those are things that you have to do. You have to see who you're going to be and be able to move it further. You have to identify your own passion and what you want to do. When I was born in the middle of the 20th century, I entered a world where everything seemed possible. But many people look back at the 1960s and they see it as something where there was anarchy. That's what people talk about. Oh, it was chaotic. But for me, it was that everybody was saying that they had a right to participate. So when you look around the world, you saw decolonialization happening. You saw new things occurring every day. The civil rights movement, the women's movement. We saw people talking about peace instead of war. All of those things were about determining that we could do more. And we were also looking deep into the universe around us. The creativity went into the arts and the sciences. It also went into thinking that we could go into space and other things. And sometimes people sort of look at these and sort of say, they're gone. But you have an opportunity to do lots of things. Let me share with you something about my space flight. When I was up in space, I was struck by the incredible permanence and beauty of this planet. I looked down at the Earth and there was this thin shimmering layer of light. That's our atmosphere, it's what we live in. And at one point I even tried to make myself afraid, right? Because I was feeling a little too comfortable. So I wanted to try to make myself afraid. I imagined on the other side of this hatch that was about this wide was this environment or this atmosphere didn't necessarily support my life form. But it didn't frighten me because I became acutely aware of something. I am as much a part of this universe as any planet, any comet, any star, stardust. We're made of the stuff of stars. That's the one piece that I wanted you to take with you. Because the stars and the things that make them up are billions and billions of years old. So what's inside of us stretches back billions of years. And it's going to be here in the years to come. So the question you have to ask yourself is, what are you going to do with your time? How are you going to fulfill this? Let me share with you my passion as well. An African proverb says, no one shows a child the sky. That's because the sky has been with us for thousands of years. And so when we talk about space exploration, sometimes people think of that as something that doesn't have anything to do with us, right? It doesn't have anything to do with our world. But I would fundamentally disagree. We all have a role to play in many different ways. While the African proverb says no one shows a child the sky, we must show him or her how to live and truly prosper beneath that sky. And that's where our passion comes in. My passion is space exploration, science and technology, engineering, mathematics, but it's also around people. It's also around people. Our passion is what pushes us to move forward, that compels us and allows us to endure in a specific direction, even when others may doubt us and why we're working that way. You know that there are people who didn't necessarily believe in what you believed in. And you're going to continue to find them. Even if you're doing incredible stuff, people are going to sometimes doubt you and say that you shouldn't be doing this. But where do you get your passion from? It's not about what career you want to be or want to do. It's about who you want to be inside. For me, it's exploration. For me, it's about trying something that I don't know that I can do. It's about meeting challenges that, that somebody else didn't necessarily put in front of me. It's about understanding a world that's greater than me. Other people, we have passions. I have passions for education. We have these great, big, encompassing ones, and we have smaller ones that push us forward. But in all times, it's really about meeting what kind of person you want to be, not the specific job you have. Sometimes you go after that job, right? Because it allows you to pursue a passion. I wanted to go into space. I didn't want to be an astronaut. I wanted to go into space. Right? So after having worked in developing countries and all of those kinds of things, that's what I wanted to do. And I had to figure out how to do that. I could have stood in a cornfield with aluminum foil over my head waiting for ET to come find me, but I thought it was better to apply to the astronaut program. Sometimes it is about the job, but it's always about your passion and finding how you move forward, who you want to be. So that passion is something that sometimes comes in generations as well. And many times people now are talking about the millennial generation, what are kids gonna do and how do you figure out and find something? Let me quote Frantz Fanon. He said, each generation must, out of relative obscurity, discover its mission, fulfill it, or betray it. Let me share something with you. Right now, the United States is the most prosperous nation in the entire history of this world. And we're living in a particularly prosperous time. And while all society should always be thinking about the legacy and the future they're creating, it's moments such as this when we as citizens of this nation, as individuals of this world, have unprecedented amounts of material wealth. There is never another time in the history of our planet that we have had the material wealth we have. Now, I know people are talking about the economics. Really, the economics aren't actually that bad, but think about it. We actually have capabilities to do incredible things. What keeps us from doing it is whether or not we really want to live out our passions. Do we really believe that everyone should share in the bounty of this planet? Or are we like the Ferengi? Ask your Star Trek friends. Are we like the Ferengi who say in their rule of acquisition number 97 that enough is never enough? We look and see, could we have another pair of running shoes, bar red, aftershave, lipstick color, even 1 degree cooler in our homes in the summer or winter. But that's not worth losing this legacy of what we might be creating on this planet, what we might be creating for everyone. We're at a critical point where we need to move forward and figure out how to include everyone in the bounty of this planet. It's something that we need to do. We have to be cognizant of something. I can't tell you what your mission is going to be, but you do need to find it. But I can tell you some of the challenges that you're facing in the world today. Our challenges are really sometimes those things of abundance, right? Think about the abundance we have. We have an access to resources. You know, you can get on your cell phone and you can look up different information at any point in time. What do you do with it? You can indulge yourself in Ben & Jerry's ice cream and all kinds of things, right? What are you going to do with that? And I'm not saying that you can't do those things, but just think about it. We have incredible amounts of data that come across. The data does not necessarily equal knowledge, right? And knowledge doesn't necessarily equal wisdom. There's more that we have to do. That abundance of information can sometimes make us look foolish unless we dig down into it. We're connected with the world all around us. When I was growing up, I got to do one of them. When I was growing up, so I remember my sister went to East Africa, to Tanzania. The way we communicated with her was by a letter, an airmail letter that had to be very thin to be sent from place to place. Nowadays, you can Skype people, right? It's like you never left home. What do you do with that connectivity? What do you use it for? This is abundance is really important that we have as a resource. But there's something else that's out there. There's fear. So many people are afraid of losing power. Power doesn't corrupt. It's the fear of losing power that corrupts. And when we look at this, we have to understand that we have to fight our own fear. And then there's the whole issue of greed. It's driven by fear that somehow you're not sufficient enough in yourself. And so people always want more. So by getting more, we validate ourselves. But that hole will never be filled until you understand what's inside of you. What's inside of you, what your passion is, how you're going to make things different. Which comes to the whole idea of choices and impact. Impact is that really interesting thing that is about the actions that you take. It's not about intention. Impact is about what you actually do and what effect it has on the world. And I want to be clear, passion is not enough. You have to do something with that passion. You know what the difference is between a mechanical engineer and a civil engineer? Some people would say mechanical engineers build weapons and civil engineers build targets. You know, they're coming from the same resource and information base, right? But one of them chooses to use their resource and information base in a different way. We all get choices. And so when I talk about this passion about science and technology and engineering and mathematics, right? This whole idea about what the world is like, what we do with space exploration. I have to be sure that you understand that these technology advances don't come full form. It's how we decide to use them that's at the crux of the matter. And that's the reason why we need lots of people involved. Not just those people who major in the discipline, you know, that's what I professionally want to do. If you think about it, the reason we need so many people involved is because the people who fund and support scientists, engineers, mathematicians, technologists, and those scientists, they get to choose some things. They get to choose what research is done, what problem sets are actually addressed. Those people get to choose what data sets are analyzed, which data sets are thrown out is worthwhile, is useless, or not worthwhile. They get to choose things. So whether you go into these fields or not, as a discipline, I want you to pay attention to them. Because right now, they're cutting a wide swath in the world. We sometimes assume that we can go to science and technology and be able to solve all our problems. But so many of our problems really didn't come from science and technology or from a lack of. They came from our behavior, who we are, what we decided to use our resources for. That's the reason why we have to pay attention. And this is really about making choices. We can choose not to pay attention to this and have other people just walk away and do these things and make the choices and design what path the world is going to be on, or we can get involved. That's what impact is. Impact happens as a result of our actions, what you do, not your intentions, but what you do. So much about when we talk about graduating from college, going to university or education, is couched in the term of having a place at the table, right? That's what you want to do, is have a place at the table. But I want you to ask yourself a question, which I ask myself as frequently as I can. What difference does it make if you're in a position and you have a place at the table and you act just like everyone else and you mind your table manners? What difference does it make? So it was really great. When I was first elected to the astronaut program, I got all these accolades about being the first African-American woman astronaut, and then, but what difference did it make? If I did not use my sensibilities of having grown up on the south side of Chicago, of having gone to Chicago public schools, having worked in developing countries, if I didn't use that, my knowledge as a physician, what difference did it made if I did not bring that to the program and ask the right questions to produce a different result? What difference would it make is after having been an astronaut if I left and never talked about space exploration or the things that I learned or didn't try to apply them in the safety and those issues? What difference would it make? Every day, you need to use your experiences, your perspectives to help influence what things are happening. We have to be able to move forward and have that impact. And remember that that impact that you're having is not just on a job, it's on your family and your children. And like I said, when I chose my parents so well, the impact they had was that they would allow me as this kid, as a third child, to try all these amazing things. It may have gotten on their nerves, I'm sure they did from time to time, but they were willing to go there with me. Your impact is on your friends and your colleagues, how you support them. Your impact is on your schools. It's everywhere. Then let me go back and say that it's really about the unique contributions that you can make. Don't shy away from them. Very frequently, again, when we talk about going into greater education, we talk about empowerment. You heard that term, like, this is going to empower you, or I want to be empowered. But empowerment requires a couple of things. It's really more about you than it is about other people. To be empowered, you have to first of all believe in yourself. You have to believe that you have the right to be involved. If you don't believe that you have the right to be involved, if you don't believe in yourself, then you can never be empowered. Nobody is ever going to be able to give that to you. That's you first. And then you have to acknowledge that you have something to contribute. Right? If you don't acknowledge that you have something to contribute, you can't be empowered. And finally, you have to risk making that contribution. All right, 3 things, and these are things that you can do. You have to believe in yourself, that you have the right to be involved. That's perhaps the hardest one, and that's where your passion and digging down deep and looking inside yourself makes a difference. You have to acknowledge that you have something to contribute. So when I talked about these passions you have, that means that you have to have some depth and expertise in something. You don't have to just follow one thing, but you do have to have some depth and expertise. And then you have to risk contributing it. Some people may not agree with you. I can guarantee you that many times people will not agree with you. But you have to risk making that contribution. And then as I'm starting to wrap up, I want to tell you a couple of things. There's a Yoruba proverb that says, even the sharpest blade can't cut its own handle. And that's what universities and colleges and friends and family and parents support. I was a very bright kid. You all are very intelligent, very bright, all kinds of potential. But you could not become who you are and will be if it were not for the work of the teachers, your parents, the people around you who supported you. And very frankly, I want to come into something around the university. It would not have happened if you didn't have this incredible support from the university. Right? Even the sharpest blade can't cut its own handle. And the reason why I'm going there is because there's something that's very important about alumni. Alumni need to make contributions to support the students that are going to be coming behind them. It is something that is your responsibility because people have been doing that for you. You may have thought you were going to hear that when the alumni member came up and talked about it, but I'm going to tell you because every day you need to be supporting who's coming behind you. Even the sharpest blade can't cut its own handle. You've got to some kind of way be making handles for others as people continue to make a handle for you. So as I'm wrapping up, I'm going to go back to space and science and technology, engineering and mathematics and different things, because I know that these are areas that sometimes people rush out as having not having anything to do with them. Martin Luther King Jr. in fact said nothing pains people more than having to think. And I would add on to that, people also think, I'm finished, I've learned everything I need to learn, I don't have to learn anymore. And that it's okay to push things off on, oh, that's some stuff the young folks can do. You all aren't there yet, because right now you're the young folks that everybody's pushing stuff off on. But the reality is, I don't want you to ever get to that place. Here's the place I don't want you to get to, whatever the new gimmick is, but you all know what it is. People used to say stuff like, I can't program the Blu-ray player, but my grandbaby can. That's not cute. That's not cute at all. How can you say a 4-year-old child can do something that you can't do? You can take the time to learn. It's going to be something else in your generation as you all get older, but each person has a responsibility to make choices. You get to do things. You get to move the world forward. You're going to have to continue to learn. And I'm going to end up and tell you about the project that I'm working on now, which may seem a little bit improbable. I'm working and lead a project called 100-Year Starship. It's about making sure the capabilities for human travel beyond our solar system to another star is possible within the next 100 years. The capabilities, we don't have a launch date. Why am I working on this? Because the technology, the radical innovations that will happen, that need to happen to make such capabilities a reality, are things that we need to start doing right now. And when I heard that DARPA was going to be providing a modest amount of seed funding to start an organization that could do this, I looked into myself and I said, I have the ability to do this. Why do you care about space? How many of you people have cell phones in their pockets right now, smartphones, right? What's on your smartphone? I know some of the people, that some of your parents and stuff, you all use what, that GPS to get here, right, to navigate here? That's coming from space, global positioning satellite systems, right? And so you have a space receiver in your pocket. How many of you had magnetic resonance imaging, MRIs, right? The same computer algorithms that turn digital signals, when they put your body into a big magnet, they turn it into a picture that the doctor can interpret. Those algorithms came from the same place where the software was designed to take digital signals of something like Venus, remotely sensing on Venus, and turn them into pictures we can see. It's deep down embedded in everything we do. That's part of what space exploration is. The reason I have to tell you this is because we haven't told the story very well in space. And I'm inviting you to be a part of it, 100yss.org. I would not be true to myself and my passion if I didn't invite you on this journey across space and time, because this is something we have to do. When you look at me, when many people look at me, they would not necessarily see the Nerd Prize of 2012 going to a team I led. Right? But that's where it comes from empowering yourself and having your place at the table. Why do I want to do this? Is because, just as our proposal said, an inclusive, audacious journey transforms life here on Earth and beyond. It's about inclusion. My role is to make a place for people who have not been involved in space exploration. Just like when I took a banner up for the AKAs on my space flight, I wanted to make a role. I'm doing that gratuitous AKA bit, right? But to have a place for people who haven't necessarily been there and who aren't invited, because the only way we can do incredible things is by having an incredible representation of humans and what we're capable of. So whereas you may not be thinking of space people, I'm sure some of you all out there saying, well, I'm going into media. What are the hottest programs in media right now? What are the hottest movies? They're space movies, right? They're about science fiction, they're about the world moving forward, they're about the future. How do you tell that story?
I can't because I feel
you have to be involved. We have to tell the story better. So again, the other reason I'm doing this is because as we start to talk about space, and people always talk about the idea that we're going to colonize other planets, right? And that's what's going to save humanity. They're wrong. The majority of us, the vast majority of us will never leave this planet. Neither will our grandchildren, neither will our grandchildren's grandchildren. We will be here. Yet it is the technologies and the ideas that really come from jump-starting something big right now that are going to save us. Sustainability, right? How do we use materials responsibly, our resources responsibly? How do we get more energy? Energy is a big issue in space exploration. How do we see our world and our resources? How do we see ourselves as Earthlings? So even though I don't necessarily expect you all to want to be a part of it, think about it. That this is something that you have a right to have a say in, because it's changing our world. Again, my role is to make sure that there's a position for other people to be involved. That's what I'm trying to do with my place at the table. And as we start to move forward and we look at graduation, what I'm asking you to do is accept the fact that you are joined, yes, to the past, and you are shaping the future, but you have to think about what you're doing with your present, what you're going to do to have an impact. Each of us is a result of billions of years. Ask yourself what you're going to do and to contribute to that legacy. John Mason Brown said, existence is a strange bargain. Life owes us little, we owe it everything. The only true happiness comes from squandering ourselves for our purpose. So again, think about your time, think about your passion and how to keep it going, and always understand your impact is what's going to make the difference in the world, what you do. Congratulations, Clark Atlanta University.